If you use Claude or ChatGPT, you've probably got a pile of chats, a few projects, and nothing actually holding it together. Everything you've taught it lives in someone else's cloud, and the day you switch tools, it's gone. I'm fixing that. A workspace you own, in plain files that any AI can read. You do one interview and it builds the whole thing around you. Your goals, your projects, even a private folder that AI is told to never touch. This is part one, and it's a real first run on a brand new account that knows nothing about me. Nothing staged. The prompt kit that does this isn't finished yet, so if you want it, hang on till the end of the video and I'll tell you where you can get it. So for here you can see I'm using the new Fable 5, the strongest LLM on Claude, and that's what we want to do since this is going to be a question answer and we want to get the best results. So this is the first prompt, and we've opened up this project on a new user, so it doesn't know anything about me. So I dropped the prompt and I'm answering the questions now, but we can probably do a speed through of most of this. I will record it in case there's any good sections that we want to clip. Okay, so I just completed going through the master statement questions, the back and forth. So this is what it's come up with. The statement stands as written. Now the bridge based on the distinct areas you'll be accumulating. So this is trying to figure out the different large areas that you want to have in your folder structure. Yeah, so part of this here, part of this first step is we want to get this high level stuff locked in, and then the next prompt is actually going to work on building out this folder structure. So what we want to do at this point is we want to make sure that we save off this master statement so it can be used in the future. Yep, so here's the step complete. It's saved off our master statement under the documents folder. Yep, so everything looks good. We've got our completed master statement. Alright, so we've completed the first part. We've saved off our master statement. Now we're ready for the second prompt, which will actually work with us to build out the folder structure. So let's see what it comes up with here. This is the brand new Fable 5. Alright, so it does exist, so that's good. I wrote it out with you in the last step, so I'm deriving the charter from it instead of re-asking. 4 of the 5 pillars are already covered. Part 5 has 2 genuine gaps I'll ask about at the end. So looking at some project homes, I do have some coding stuff. You know, we want every project to get a Git repo with a remote. So that's the beauty of setting up these folders, is we're actually setting up some rules for those folders, and I'll be able to show you after where those how those rules are actually stored. But every code should have a Git. You know, it's good practice, and we can enforce that. Same thing for my videos. There's going to be shoots. There's going to be some tools in there. There's going to be some transcripts, and we don't want to duplicate footage to save space, so we'll have specific rules for this video home. This other projects, so this is where everything else lives that's not a coding or a video home, but we do want to avoid this other projects becoming a junk drawer. So we'll also have some rules on this project to make sure that it's not a coding or a video project that really belongs somewhere else. So we're talking about data to own, transcripts, cloud only exposure to pull under your control. Yeah, so then as we're talking through this, one of the questions is like, what's private? So if you've worked with CoWork or Claude Code, you give them access to a folder, but they pretty much end up having read access to a lot of your system. You'll end up allowing it or going onto auto or something like that. And this private boundary, that's what this is for. And we're going to tell it so that any AI that comes in here knows that this personal folder is off limits. It's not to read or write to it ever. And we can tell it that, but at least it will warn us if remember, like, you have the control in the end, so this is dangerous freedom. So we're putting some guardrails on here, but you could easily say ignore what I said and write to the personal folder. So just be aware that this is just placing guardrails, but you have to own this in the end. Don't be the person that's whining because their whole production database got deleted by the AI. No, you didn't have the guardrails. All right, so now it's kind of created my charter summary. So this is what it's proposing. I'm going to take a quick look here. This looks good so far. Can you show this to me in more of a hierarchical structure so I can visualize it more? Yeah, so this is what we're looking for here. We want to, I don't know about yourself, but I'm a very visual person, so this helps me see the structure. So this is what I would suggest. I'll probably bake this into the prompt, so it'll show this at the end to the user. This is the first pass, so make sure you stay tuned if you actually want these prompts in the end. But this is the first pass, and on a brand new Know Nothing About Me. All right, so this structure looks good to me. I'm going to go ahead and do the third prompt. Just remember, if you want these prompts in the future, make sure to go out to the website neopioneer.com and sign up for the newsletter. But yeah, here's the third prompt that's gonna hopefully build out the magic, and we could probably see it happen live here. One thing I did do is when I started down this whole road, I just kind of started like everyone else does, and I just did things, and I had projects, and I built some code, and everything was all over the place. And as I dug into this process more and started to understand where the Claude folders live, the whole AGENT.md standard, that's part of what this process is going to do. There's an AGENT.md standard that most LLMs use, but Claude uses Claude.md. So it'll actually create AGENT.md markdown files that any agent can use, but it'll also create the Claude.md markdown files that'll pretty much just point to the agent. So we're following an industry standard here. So here we have accept edits turned on. So I'm going to go into auto mode for this and let it do its thing, and then we can we'll be able to see at the end like what it's done. But this structure here is what's going to allow it to move from one LLM to another based on that whole AGENT.md. You know, most people that build it, you'd have to write a script to port it over. And actually, I did work with Claude to actually port over my old structure into this new structure. So it has ported an existing structure over successfully. and actually saved a lot of space because I had a lot of duplicated raw footage, and at the same time I did set up a backup process. So this prompt and question should ask you about, backup and stuff like that. So just having another backup drive, it's always a good thing, and you can actually wire it into the process. And in my own, I've built processes for syncing up and rehydrating files and folders and stuff like that. So yeah, we're gonna let it do its thing here, then we'll check back in. Hopefully we'll start to see some stuff in the workspace. Yep, we can see it's already starting to build out the workspace. Alright, we've done a lot here, but as you can see, it built out the workspace, and based on our question and answer and the prompts, we now have a folder structure where we can put our coding, random documents, other projects we're working on, and here our main second brain. You can see that it has some subfolders, which is nice for human readability, so we can kind of keep it all in one place. And the way this is built is once you have more than 10 artifacts in each folder, it actually starts indexing them and splitting it out to make it more efficient for Claude to traverse it. But another thing I wanted to point out here is in here we have a Claude.md and an AGENTS.md. So what happens with Claude, at least, is whenever you open a new co-work session or a new code session in the second brain folder, we want to have these two files here, so that it'll come in. Claude will look for the Claude folder, and then the Claude folder is going to point to the agents, and then the agents is going to tell exactly how this is used. So if ChatGPT comes in here, it's going to look for agents, and here's what it's going to find. So like I said, Claude's going to come in and say, okay, I'm in the Claude.md. It's going to tell me some background, how I need to work in here. It's going to jump right to the agents, and this is where it's built it out and says, right, we're going to have an index file, read that before anything. It's the authoritative for where pages live. Then it has some ground rules that everything we put in the raw folder, it's immutable. That's our raw data in. And then eventually how it works is you ingest from the raw folder, and then it decides based on that which folders to put it in, and it updates all the links between them. And maybe I'll pop a nice obsidian graph in here, which a lot of creators do, just say, oh, look at the graph. But it's really true. It ties all these different concepts together, and AI is really good at traversing folder structures instead of having one big piece of data. Because if you've been doing this long enough, then you know already. But for those that don't, there's this idea of a context size, and there's only so much context that a session can have in it. So having this split up and granular in a folder structure, it really is the way.
So that's the whole thing, built from scratch on an account that started knowing nothing about me. A second brain, project homes with real rules, a private boundary, and it runs on any AI, not just Claude. That was the high-level pass. Part 2 goes inside these folders, how it pulls in sources, how it keeps everything linked, and handles the backup side, so you're not one dead drive away from losing all of it. The kit that builds this is still being finalized. Do you want it on the day it drops? If you do, go to neopioneer.com and get on the newsletter. Get subscribed. I'm not holding the prompts hostage, and if this was useful, a like genuinely gets the next one out faster. See you in part 2.